So from time to time, someone will ask me how I get the little webcam output in the bottom corner of my screen. Now, generally the answer that I give to this question is through OBS. Now, I know that most people know you can do it through OBS, but that's not the answer that I think that they're really looking for. So a lot of people who watch my channel, who watch Luke's channel, who watch DT's channel, and just general Linux creators, a lot of those people will use either low-powered devices or just older ThinkPads, which I guess technically are low-powered devices. So if you're going to try to run OBS on that, it might be a bit of a problem from time to time. You could do it, but there are far lighter recording solutions out there like doing ffmpeg or simple screen recorder. So today I'm going to show you how to do the webcam output if you're using something like that. It will work with OBS as well, but if you're using OBS, you might as well just do it through that application. So I'm going to go disable the webcam so OBS doesn't keep trying to hold on to it, and then we'll get right into it. Okay, so this will be one of the rare occasions where I don't actually have my webcam enabled. Now, the first method here is actually really simple. So if you didn't know, all of your webcam streams are actually stored in a location on your hard drive. So if we just go into my terminal, if we just ls that location, so they're in a place called /dev. Now, there's a bunch of other stuff in here we don't care about. The things we care about in here, though, are these 4 video files right here. So these are basically just the stream from your webcam. Now, I've got 2 sets here. Video 0 and video 1 are for one of my webcams. Video 2 and video 3 are for my other webcam. That's just because I've got my C920 and I've got my built-in webcam. If you've only got one, then you'll only have video 0 and video 1. So video 0 and video 1 for me are going to be my built-in webcam. Video 2 and video 3 are going to be my external webcam. Now, the one we actually care about is video 2, not the video 3. Now, what can you actually do with this? So I said that this is actually a video file, or I guess really a video stream. Now, one of the cool things you can do with something like MPV is that you can actually just play a video stream. So if we just send that file just into MPV, what we'll see, give it just a moment to load up, and as we will see, we now have a video stream. Now, you might be noticing something really weird here, and I'm going to quit out of this just because it's going to be really annoying for you guys. You notice that the webcam is really laggy, and this is a problem that can occur with some USB webcams, most notably with the C920. So this method, it's not the best method. I think there are ways to fix it. One of the methods is to just lower the resolution of the webcam, but I'm not really sure how to go about doing that without going through the second method I'm going to show you. So the second method, this will work with every single webcam. It'll give you the ability to easily configure stuff and a bunch of other things like that. So you can still configure these webcams without using the method I'm going to show you. You can do that through the V4L utils, which I'm going to do a dedicated video on. But today I'm going to show you the method that I would highly recommend. So what we're going to be doing is using a program called Guvcview. Now this is available in the standard Arch repo. So if we just go sudo pacman. I keep going to use my alias every time I do this. -s and then go Guvcview. So I've already got this installed, so I'm not going to bother with that. But let's just have a look at this application. So it might behave a little weirdly if you've got another recording application open like OBS. Generally, it's not going to ask like this though. It'll usually find whatever your default webcam is. So let's just open up the C920 stream. As I said before, there's going to be 2 of those streams there. And now, if I move this around, there's just this weird window here. Generally, that doesn't occur unless you have just a weird problem with OBS being open and Guvcview conflicting with it because they're trying to take the same webcam stream. If you don't have OBS touching your webcam streams, you're not going to get this weird window appearing though. So we'll just put this on my second screen and we'll go over there and just have a look at basically how this works. So as you'll see in here, there's a couple of different settings you have access to, and we've got this little webcam preview down the bottom here now as well. Now, the different thing about this compared to doing it with OBS is that this little webcam stream now is actually just like a regular window on my screen. So if I go over to my main screen, I get rid of this junk. I don't know why it's here. Close that. Is that going to disappear now? Okay, it's disappeared. I guess it just was there because there was a problem loading up the webcam. But anyway, this is actually just a regular window on my screen. So if I start doing stuff on my screen, it's actually going to cover stuff. Now, normally it would cover stuff, but when I'm recording, I wouldn't actually be able to see this window down here. So this actually does give you the benefit of giving you an indication that you're actually covering stuff with your webcam. So before we go into that, and before I go into how I've actually got it spawning down here, I'm going to just show you some of these settings. So you can control the brightness, the contrast, the saturation, the power line frequency, the white balance temperature, the sharpness, the backlight compensation, exposure, pan and tilt, and also do focus. So what do some of these settings actually do? Now, I was testing this off camera, and for some reason it seems like it's just not playing nicely with some of the settings right now. For example, brightness isn't doing anything. I don't know if this is just a problem with my computer because it was working just yesterday, so I don't know what's happened here, but saturation works just fine. So if we lower that, as we can see, now we are in what could be described as Lunduk mode. And if we raise that up again, and now we are fluorescent. So yeah, that does work, but for some reason the brightness and the contrast aren't working right now. They generally work perfectly fine though. So what are some of the settings you're actually going to want to touch in here? If you have a C920, there are some things you have to do in here. What you need to do is come down to exposure auto, set this to manual mode, and manually set your exposure. And also, I would recommend turning autofocus off. If you want to just let it try to determine the focus itself, then click the set focus button, and that will basically focus the clip. Or if you prefer to just manually set the focus yourself, then you can just play with this slider here. And as we can see back here, we'll make this tiling as well. As we can see back here, you can just get this to the point where it's pretty much in focus. That should be roughly the correct point there. So the other thing you might want to play with is your power line frequency. So if you're in an area that uses PAL, set this to 50 Hertz. If you're in an area that uses NTSC, then set it to 60 Hertz. So I'm in Australia, so I'm going to set it to 50 Hertz. The next one you're probably maybe going to want to play with is your white balance. So if you want to set your white balance, turn this setting off right here, so white balance temperature auto. If you leave that on, it will try to determine a sensible white balance. Generally, it's pretty good, but if you want to have a more finer control over this, then disable that setting. So this slider right here will let you change your white balance. So this is basically a scale from blue to orange of the, I guess, grading of your scene. So if we scale this down, as we can see, the scene slowly gets more and more blue to the point where it is ridiculously blue. And if we keep going to the right, as we can see, it slowly gets more orange and more orange. You don't really want it to be on the extremes of either side unless you've got some really, really janky lighting setup. If you have some weird lighting setup like that, honestly, I would recommend replacing your lights rather than trying to fix it in here. But I like to put this from anywhere around 5,000 to about 5,400 or so. Anywhere in that range, depending on what the lighting is doing outside and just generally how the scene really looks. So I'm going to just lower this back down. As I was saying before though, the white balance temperature auto is actually pretty good, at least with the C920. I don't know what it's going to be like specifically with your webcam, so I would recommend testing it out yourself. Now this gain right here, I believe, is the sensitivity to light. So if we slowly raise this, as we can see, I slowly turn into a ghost. Now I'm going to turn that way back down. I wouldn't recommend touching the gain at all. If you need more light, get more light. If you try to do it with gain, it's going to come off being a little bit gross looking. The other thing you have in here is, depending on what webcam you're using, you may have zoom. So I have a little bit of zoom here. I don't ever actually use it. I like to have my webcam zoomed out as much as possible. But if you're using something like the Logitech Brio or the Logitech StreamCam, then it has a bunch of different zoom settings, and that's how you would go about controlling that. So the other major thing you're going to want to do, especially if you're using something like a C920, come in here, set the frame rate from 5 FPS to 30 FPS, and set the resolution from, I think it defaults to like 640 by 480 up to 1080p, or whatever the max of your webcam is. And the other thing is your camera output. Now it has all the common outputs here. If you set it to something that your webcam doesn't support, it will just completely fall apart. So if we set this to YUYV, as we can see, we now drop down to 5 FPS. Right now, it doesn't even look like the webcam's moving. So we're going to set this back to, what do I have, MJPEG. But if your webcam does support other methods, then you might be able to use one of those. So obviously also set it back up to 30 FPS as well. One thing when going between the different settings is it might actually break all of your settings. So be careful when you actually do switch around. I'm not sure how to fix this besides just unplugging the webcam and plugging it back in. So I would recommend getting this correct and then just not touching it. So if you want to use a bunch of video filters for whatever reason, you can do that. So this is how my room should really look because now I have mirrored the room. So I'm never going to use this setting because it just looks really weird now that I've gotten used to it being, I guess, the other way around. We've got like a half mirror, so that's like a mirror in the center. I'm not going to go through these settings. If you want to look at them yourself, then I guess you can go have a look at that. The other thing we have in here is mono. So once again, welcome to Lunduk mode. And yeah, that's pretty much everything you're going to care about in here. So you can actually capture video and capture images in here. You can also do audio capture in here. I wouldn't recommend this. I would recommend doing that all through whatever other video capture software you want to use. So this isn't going to let you capture your entire screen. This is just a webcam capture program. So if you want to record your screen with your webcam, do it in something like OBS, Simple Screen Recorder, ffmpeg, whatever it is you want to use. One thing I would highly suggest is once you've got your settings exactly the way that you want them, make sure you go up to settings and go save profile, and then you can reload those settings again so that next time you plug your webcam in, even if it does lose its settings, which the C920 is very, very known to do, you can reload the settings and actually basically have it back to how you want it to be. I know things like the StreamCam and the Brio actually do store their settings properly, but the C920 is probably the most popular webcam, so if you have a webcam that's not built into your laptop, you probably have something like that. So that brightness is still not working. Okay, I don't know what's going on with the brightness. It was working earlier. I don't know, something weird is happening with that. So how do I have this webcam in the bottom corner right here? Now this is a setting that I'm doing within my window manager. Obviously this will be different depending on what you use. So I'm on BSPWM. If you're on i3 or DWM, there's probably a similar method to go about doing it in that. So if we bring open my BSPWM settings, we go into the correct one. Did I just quit out of that? I don't know how. Maybe that just crashed or something. I've never had it crash. So I don't know what just happened there. Anyway, let's just bring that back open. We'll go back over to this desktop. And anyway, now we have the webcam back open. I've never seen that crash, so I'm not exactly sure what just happened. So what I've done in my BSPWM RC is I've actually set a rule for the Guvc window. So I've got it so it's always floating. I would really, really suggest making this a floating window. If you make it a tiling window, then it's going to be treated like a regular tiling window. So what will happen there, so if we just make that a tiling window, we just make a bunch of terminals here. As we can see, the more terminals we make, the smaller the webcam gets. So I would suggest making sure it stays out of your tiling window tree. Obviously, this will depend on how your window manager handles it. There might be a better way to do it in DWM, but that's just how I'm doing it here. The next setting in here is just for setting the size of the Guvc window. So I've just got that set to 480 by 270, and I'm getting it spawned at 1440 plus 810. So that is the bottom right corner here. Sticky basically will make it so every time I switch to a new desktop, the webcam will follow me. So this makes sure you don't have to then bring it along with you. It'll just follow along with you. As I said before, I don't know how to do this in DWM or any other window manager, so make sure you just check out how to do it for those programs. And the last one in here is layer above. So this will make it so that when I make a window full screen, this window will still be above everything else. Because if I have that disabled, what will happen is I go full screen and my webcam will actually be behind all of this, which obviously isn't the best to see. Now, there's one other thing I haven't shown you about this. What if we want to actually move the webcam? Now, I would really recommend doing this as well. So if you're going to have your webcam down here, make sure you set up bindings to move it. So if we just press Shift, Alt, and 3 on my keyboard, as we can see, like when I'm doing my recordings within OBS, we can just move the webcam around. And I can also go into full screen mode as well. So you will notice there is a slight border around it. But if you want to avoid that, then just move your mouse to a different screen. Or I think you can also disable the borders within BSPWM as well. So how am I doing that? So if we just go over to my SXHKD configs, and then we'll go from basically the bindings in here and actually have a look at the script I'm using. So I've got a script in here that I'm called control webcams. So basically all this script is doing is taking in some values and then it's going to be moving the webcam to a new location. So let's just have a brief look at that script then. Okay, this is a really, really simple script. So basically, I've got these two functions in here. So full screen, which will basically move the window to the top corner here, and then set it to whatever I've set to my full screen dimensions, which right now is 1920 by 1080. And it's going to set the window that is set to this ID. Move is going to resize the window to 480 by 270, because if I'm in full screen mode right now, then I'm going to want to resize first, and then basically it will move that window to wherever I specify. Now, to get the ID of this window, it is really simple. All I'm doing is using XDO tool search, and then giving it the PID of Guvcview, which is this right here. Now, this does have a slight side effect in the fact that this window down here and also the control panel are both named Guvcview, so it will actually move both the windows around the screen. So that's a little bit of a problem. Generally, though, you're going to set your settings with the control panel and then put the control panel on a screen where you're not going to see it. So it's not a big deal. It's just something to be wary of. And then basically all I'm doing is using a case statement to check whatever that first argument is. If the first argument is full screen, I go into full screen mode. If it's anything else, then I'm going to assume that I'm trying to move the window. Obviously, it's not the most robust script, but it works for something that I'm using on my system. So I'll just switch back to OBS and then I'll tell you why I'm not actually doing this method on my system. Okay, so now my colors are back to how they should be. So there's a very good reason why I'm not doing this on my system, because it is really useful to have your webcam in the bottom corner to make sure that you aren't covering anything, basically. So the problem with doing it like this is that there's no way to apply a LUT. At least I haven't found one. So a LUT is basically a way to translate certain colors in your image into certain other colors. So basically, if you look at, say, Instagram has all those filters. Now, all of those are LUTs. They basically translate colors into other colors. So you can apply basically different looks to your image that aren't exactly possible by just modifying the brightness, the contrast, and the saturation. So that's something that I think is really important. And now that I know about LUTs, I've noticed that it makes my image look way better. So if I could do that with Guvcview, or I could do that with the command line method, then I would do that, but there doesn't seem to be a way to do it. At least there's no easy way to do it from what I've seen. So I'm going to stick with doing this with OBS, but if you just want a basic webcam stream and you don't really care about the colors in it, going through Guvc is probably the easiest method to do it, and it allows you to record with ffmpeg with simple screen recorder and still have a webcam output on your screen. So before I end this video, I'd like to thank my patrons Andrew, Road, LQ, Larry, and Zilva who help make this channel possible. So if you want to support the channel, or if you just want to have your name read out at the end of the video, there'll be a link to my Patreon down below. So I've also got my social links down below, so that'll be my Discord, my Telegram, and all of that sort of stuff, and my alternate video platforms, so my BitTube and my library. Also, remember to smash that like button and leave me a comment. And lastly, remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below because it'll really help the channel out. So, I think that's pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.